If Florida State doesn't get word on Gus Malzahn and all their other assistants very soon, it's going to hurt them with the transfer portal, recruiting, and more.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one network in the land. We're going to be talking about some college football news that impacts Florida State with the portal and all the things that are kind of going on as we get ready for the college football playoffs later in the show. We're going to be talking about a decommitment that is not good for Florida State a little bit later. Some transfer portal news as a couple of guys are leaving FSU, but I'm going to start this show with the overarching concern that I have with Florida State for right now, and that is getting the coaching staff settled. In particular, Gus Malzahn, will he be back or will he not at Florida State? This is why I'm concerned right here. If it is not figured out almost within the next 24 to 48 hours, you could literally consider Florida State again behind the competition. You have to have your staff set as early as possible in a public way, not just privately, so that you can go out and recruit. You can go out and get your portal situation taken care of. Your locker room will know who's going to be the coach or not. And if he is leaving, you can get somebody else in as soon as possible to do all those same things. It's straightforward. Florida State is just like every other school. Your staff has to know exactly what it wants to do, and then you go out and fill your roster accordingly to put that plan into motion. Sounds simple, but the longer that Norvell doesn't officially and publicly, on record, on camera, say, these are my coaches, the worse it's going to be for Florida State. I don't know what the holdup is. We haven't heard anything, and Mike Norvell's last press conference was really bad in terms of him being extremely non-committal. He didn't handle the question very well, being kind, and that's not good for Florida State either. It needs to end within the next 48 hours. Come hell, come high water. If not, Florida State's probably going to take on water with the portal. I know they've got some money to spend, and the administration has talked quite a bit about the ability to, quote unquote, help Mike Norvell get this program to a championship level. One of the things that Norvell's going to have to do is help himself now. I don't know which job or jobs Gus or anybody else are really trying to get, but Florida State's just not in a position to wait. It's unfair, and Gus is a great guy, but Florida State's coming off its second consecutive losing season. Every hour counts, let alone day. Players need to know or they're going to be bailing. They're talking with their agents about other opportunities. They're going to be leaving. Got Mario Nash is going to be gone. Tywin Cleveland's going to be gone, etc. It's just some of these players that you may not think about, but that's going to end up being starters very soon too. They have to know. And again, to be very clear, all of the following needs to be a part of that. On record, on camera, within the next 48 hours. We need an answer. Going into the weekend, it needs to be over. They're going to have a lot of schools recruiting against them. They're going to have schools trying to steal players off their roster. I know this is my world. They will try to cheat. I'm talking about everybody in college football. Don't think that Florida State doesn't try to do it too, because that would be false. And Florida State will be at a disadvantage. Is Gus retiring? Is he getting another job? Is he still interviewing? They're going to try to sell doubt to current Florida State players and, of course, in recruiting. With that being stated, I don't know how many other coaches are possibly going to leave. I get that it's interview season, but again, just want to reiterate, Florida State is not in a position to wait. It's unfortunate, but this is the spot you're in after a 5-7 campaign and coming off 2-10 before that. Teams are going to negative recruit against you. So what is my prediction? I don't have one. And I'm about as opinionated as a guy as there is, but it has been really tight-lipped around Florida State. Of course, Johnson, the running back coach, is headed to Arkansas. Okay, that's one thing. Who's going to be the replacement? That'll take care of itself pretty quickly. I'm sure they've got a short list for an assistant, but you can't really do that without a coordinator. That's why Gus is so important. Coordinators make those hires. You have to have Gus's decision ASAP. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about the portal, decommitment, and a little college football news in this short edition. So I'm on the road here for Locked On Seminoles, but think about the players that you don't want to see leave Florida State. They haven't had that yet, but how much longer is it going to be? That is next here on Locked On Seminoles. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to get going and there's some shifts to it. A player makes a big play like a receiver making a one-handed grab, a pick six, a turnover, a sack, whatever it may be. FanDuel lets you jump in on the action whenever the big moment takes place. So they're going to have spreads that change, player props that change, all the different odds. You're going to have the opportunity to bet on quarters or anything else, all with live betting. So if you want to get right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. If you have not already, become an everydayer. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Seminoles. Hit that notification bell on YouTube. And if you're out and about, take us with you to the gym, the grocery store, wherever you're going, Spotify, Apple, wherever you are, take us with you. Decommitments, there's one player Florida State lost out of the 27 class. Really good corner from the class 2027 out of Western High School down in the Fort Lauderdale area. This kind of sucks, but at the same time, it happens. You just fired Surtain. I knew there was going to be ramifications in South Florida. This is a kid that had connections directly to Surtain. One of the top corners in the class of 2027, Bryce Williams, no longer a part of Florida State's class. Again, getting everything lined up with your coaches, it's going to have some repercussions. It is what it is. I'm not going to dive into that. Already had enough negativity at the beginning of the show, although it's honest and true. Also, Mario Nash transfers. He was one of my favorite players. Really good kid, too. In the class of 2025, offensive tackle out of Kemper County High School in Mississippi. Florida State is not in a position to lose any form of depth on the offensive line, let alone one that's a top 250 recruit and somebody that can play tackle or guard. This is really surprising to me, especially this early. But whatever the case is, Mario is moving on. That's a tough loss. The good news for Florida State is despite some uncertainty again with Gus and maybe a couple other guys, Surtain, there really hasn't been much movement from the current roster. Why is that? I'm not sure. Is it NIL? Is Florida State ponying up a little bit? You're not going to get all the details because there's over 100 guys on a roster. But I thought we would see 5-10 guys almost immediately after the second season in a row of losing hit the portal. I'm glad to be wrong on that. Maybe it'll take another week or so, whatever it may be. I don't know. But there's been a bunch of guys hit the portal just nationally. That's one of the things with the college football news for those of you watching on YouTube that I think is interesting. Why hasn't it happened at Florida State? I really don't have an answer for that, but I'm happy. Florida State is in a better spot than I thought they would be right now. The decommitment sucks. Losing Mario Nash sucks, blah, blah, blah. But I thought it was going to be far more than that. I thought there were going to be a bunch of transfers almost post-haste as soon as the season ended. Now, does that start this coming weekend after some of these kids have had a chance to talk to their agents and stuff? It's possible. But most of these guys probably knew before the end of the year if they wanted to move on. You're going to have your exit interviews and some of that stuff's going on this week, I'm sure, where they talk not only with the coaches, but with their parents, maybe their old trainer from high school, whatever. Do I want to stay with FSU and ride this out, or do I want to move on? Tough decisions. It's not like it used to be where you signed a scholarship and you expected to be there until you left college. It's kind of a year-to-year deal now, not just at Florida State, but Clemson, Texas A&M, or anywhere else. Florida State's probably a little bit of ahead of the curve, as crazy as that may sound, with the portal right now compared to where I thought they would be. But the next 4 or 5 days are critical, and that goes right back to my point about Malzahn. Players want to know exactly who their coaches are going to be post-haste. This indecision stuff is not good. maybe in the building they know the answer already and it's just not announced. I guess that's possible, but if that's the case, why isn't it announced? So I'm curious to see how long this goes on and if Florida State can make anything out of this. As for college football news in general, I'll talk more about it this week a little bit and into the weekend. I'm going to study some more film. But Sam Leavitt, the quarterback from Arizona State, is getting into portal. He's a guy that, Florida State and everybody else is probably going to go after. I've talked a little bit about it here on this show. I want to use him as a barometer, like for every position. There's going to be a guy kind of like Leavitt. How much does Florida State go all in? Because again, I'm gonna harp on this all off season. How much is Florida State going to go all in based on what the administration stated publicly in their little disclosure about Norvell? We're going to be a championship level team. Are they really going to go after the top players or not? Quarterback, ironically, is the one spot I don't think they necessarily should because A, it's expensive. Even with Sam, I don't think they'd be a title contender next year. Just my opinion. I'd rather use that money on linemen and taking younger players that have 2, if not 3 years of eligibility remaining and building for the long term 2027 and 2028 and 9. But that's just me. But that's still a barometer. Like if you spend on Leavitt, it would be better than not doing anything. Who are they going to go in on? Who are they going to go gusto for in the 2026 portal cycle? I don't know. But again, linebacker, pass rusher, those are a couple spots that are obvious. And of course, offensive line, they're going to need a couple. Those are the ones I went over the other day, steadfast with it. I would still take Kevin Sperry, and maybe you get a veteran from somewhere that's a good player, maybe a MAC player, Sunbelt player to come in and compete just to have a better roster. But I think Kevin Sperry's your future. Maybe it's Jaden O'Neal and he comes in and balls. Who knows? But you got to recruit and play your quarterbacks at some point. Some other schools are kind of going through that this year. At some point, you're going to have a first-year starter. It is what it is. If you don't do that, you start to lose some momentum with high school recruiting. Florida State's got some good young quarterbacks. Take advantage of it. Let's see what they can do. But that's just my opinion. With that, I'm going to wrap up a shortened edition of Locked On Seminoles. Should have a longer show on Thursday, but everybody have a good one. We will see you soon here on Locked On Seminoles.